Welcome back to the Night Pitch, people of the world. I'm Justin Wick. He's Evan Johnson. Episode 10 of the Night Pitch with Justin Wick. Returning back for the first episode of the year 2024. Evan, welcome back. How was the Christmas and New Year's, man?
That was awesome. I got to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time. Go to a lot of different places. Florida, Texas, Houston, Austin. Wish I could have seen you down there, though. But you were up visiting your
That's
family.
right. There you go. I know. Just when you come to my neighborhood, I go to the others. I had the Denver, Colorado stop. I had the Reno, Nevada stop to see the lady for several days, which was awesome. I had an airplane layover during New Year's. I was in the Las Vegas airport watching fireworks when the clock struck 12. Good stuff.
You had a
I won't keep
layover
people bored
on midnight? Hold on.
Yeah, it was actually pretty awesome. I landed from Reno to Vegas at like 11 p.m. And I was trying to see if I could get to the Strip, but I only had like an hour. And they closed the Strip down for like security purposes. Like you couldn't bring any backpacks or anything. And I had all my luggage because I flew. So I was like, well, looks like I'm not going to go do the Strip for New Year's. So instead, I went to the top of a parking garage at the Las Vegas airport. And it was the employee parking garage. And I was in an elevator with about 7 police officers who knew I wasn't supposed to be there, but they were kind enough to let me go watch it with the staff. So there we go.
That's awesome.
Long story short. So you never know what life is going to throw your way. I guess the lesson for this is not very baseball related, but the good moral of this is sometimes the best times are going to come out of situations that you would have never possibly envisioned were going to come.
Clock struck
there
with Wick and a bunch of cops standing there. Where else would you be?
So, like I'm standing there, like I'm right next to half of the police force for the airport and like all of the ground workers for Southwest Airlines. So I'm just this random person in the middle. So, there it is. It struck 12. I had the Spirit Airlines planes in front of me, and I had the Vegas skyline in front, right behind. So there we go.
Well, I spent the night in Chicago. There's that. So we each had some airport adventures.
Dude, this is this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the airport situations in baseball and how they progress. Because I mean, some amateur players maybe don't have as much opportunity. I want to cover. We had a plan of talking about something else, but we're going to save this for the second part now because this is where the show goes and this is what we do.
All natural.
I think that it's funny to see like college teams when they have to travel and they have to wear matching like pants and jackets. It's like maybe they have to wear like a polo shirt and everybody's in khaki pants, and then they've got their backpacks and their laundry loop with their glove clipped on it. You know, I dream of the opportunity of just being on a college team and actually getting to show up to the airport looking like a regular human being rather than having to look like Papa Smurf in royal blue.
Yeah, well, we had that almost like a jumpsuit. I think it was actually for like, I think they were actually supposed to be Nike like basketball pregame warm-ups, but we wore them as our travel suits, and they were all bright royal blue with like the like little tightener fastener thing like by your ankles.
Oh, the ones that you can pull. Yeah, there you go. I mean, they were comfy though. Like, I'll give you that. I mean, I know some places that you have to wear like a shirt with a collar and everything, but like, I think it's interesting when you compare the progression of like in amateur settings, it's a big deal if you get that chance. And then if you're in a bigger college, it's not so much of a unique situation. You get into the minor leagues, sometimes you might be confined to like a bus league. You might not see an airplane for a couple of years. And then you gradually make your way to the big leagues, and then you get like catered meals, you get a private menu. Like, I think that it's fascinating to see how well taken care of you truly are in the big leagues. I mean, I understand that it's not a surprise necessarily, but what about like, have you ever had like significant delays in the airport? Or like, what is it like when things are not going the way that they're supposed to and you're with a traveling party of like 30 alpha males trying to figure out what to do?
I can't think of a lot of any delays situations we had at Creighton, but I do remember there's a lot in minor league baseball, but you're never with a whole team, like unless you're AAA or above. You know, usually you're usually by yourself. But if you're sometimes with a group of guys, just depending on what happened. But I remember this one time at Creighton, we had a flight that we were all supposed to be on that got canceled, and then they had to reroute everybody but there wasn't enough seats, so they had to reroute us on different planes. So like one plane got in, I think one plane got in at a reasonable time, and the other plane got in at not so reasonable of a time. And I don't remember how that went down of like, oh, like how do you get on the good plane? But either one, we took like, we did the thing where you overshoot and then go back. Like if we were in like Jersey, we'd go to like Denver and then go back to Omaha. You know,
I remember this. We played the University of Maryland, and the series was originally supposed to be a home series for us, but it got snowed out, so it was like a home and home one year. So we ended up saying, well, hey, we'll play you at your place, but we'll just switch this to a home series later. So we decided like 2 weeks in advance that, we're just going to flip-flop it. We'll play on the road this year. So we had to frantically schedule the flight. We didn't have the normal time to schedule the flights, so that's why we had to divide the teams up. So this Sunday game at Maryland, we ended up giving up like 5 runs in the 9th inning, and we're running late to when we need to get on the plane. Well, I went from Maryland to Dallas to Omaha, and I don't know where the other groups went. But anyways, I was on the early flight.
Such a long flight.
So I remember, like, I had my stuff, and I'm going, yeah, I'll check my bag, not a big deal. But I had just got off, like, the field. We were rushing, so I'm on the bus, and I'm like, I have my cleats in my bag. Like, I need to switch them into my, like, checked luggage, or else they're not going to let me get this through. We had kids we literally were running through Ronald Reagan Airport, and we had kids that had plyocare balls in their backpacks that they had to actually search for. So it was our pitching coach and hitting coach. They were absolutely livid because we were sprinting to get to the gate, and all these TSA agents are looking at like 12 plyos trying to figure out what they were. So we did make it on the plane. It wasn't a big deal. Like, it ended up being fine. It wasn't a huge deal. But I remember handing a kid my cleats saying, I need you to put these in your bag or else they're being left behind in Washington, D.C. So I left him on the seat of the bus. We landed back in Omaha. He handed me the spikes. I think I bought him some like dinner or something. I don't know. It was awesome. But no, that's a good time. I can think of another where we had to play a doubleheader on Saturday, and instead of playing the scheduled Sunday game, we just moved two up to Saturday. I'm sorry. We were supposed to fly out Sunday night, but because of weather, we're still flying out Sunday night, but now we have a full day in Indianapolis, so we have nothing to really do. So we went to some sports bar. We watched the Masters. We get to the Indianapolis airport, and nobody's getting off the bus. We've been told to stay on the bus. Well, this turns into the players looking up the flight board in Indianapolis, trying to find out the status of the flights that we were on. And like all these flights are canceled or delayed, and we find out we're just absolutely screwed. We ended up busing back to Omaha from Indianapolis, but the bus driver couldn't take us all the way back. So it was like 1:00 in the morning that we had to get off at a rest stop, switch onto another bus, and then finish the drive from there. That was a good one, man.
One of the ones. No, I want to tell this story. The one at Creighton where we were in the tournament, because that was one of the weirdest ones to me. Was where we were going to Oregon State for a regional, and we took a charter plane that time, and we were on a plane that was just us, and it was a pretty big plane. Like, it wasn't a small plane for just us. Well, anyways, Michigan was in, what were they, whatever tournament they were in, but they were halfway there, right?
Yeah, well, they met us. So the plane started in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at their local airport, and it was a chartered plane, but because the NCAA is responsible for travel for the regionals, they have to coordinate what's the cheapest way that we can get everybody there cost effectively with a week notice. Like, I mean, we find the selection shows on a Sunday, and we're playing Thursday. So we have 5 days notice to figure out how are we going to get, well, and most of the host schools, a lot of them are SEC schools. So, like, how are you going to get to Oxford, Mississippi when you have 5 days of notice with 40 people?
Right.
So, Michigan started, the plane went from Ann Arbor to Omaha to Eugene, which was the closest airport to Corvallis. And we shared a plane with the team that we played in the first game of the tournament.
We were already on it, and when they got on, And they walked on, and we're in our royal jumpsuits.
We're in our Smurf costumes.
And they went to Oregon, and like they were wearing what, like Hawaii. They all had Hawaiian shirts and khakis on. And I remember them walking on the plane, and like none of us said any. They're walking down the aisle because this is the team that we're going to play. Start walking down the aisle of a plane with just us and the team we're going to play on the same plane. So nobody says a word. They're all just walking back. So, anyways, they ended up beating us in that regional, and that was the year they went on to be runner-up in the College World Series. But after we were leaving that regional, I remember like sitting there thinking, like, please don't take us back with Michigan. Like that would be the most.
That would be absolutely brutal.
Oh man, that would be terrible. But
I know they went on to UCLA, so they actually didn't go back home. They stayed, but I can only imagine that if they decided to go back, or if we both lost, I would venture to guess we were on the same plane. But it's funny, too. There was a kid from Michigan that I played JUCO ball with, and we're walking past the aisle, and, like, nobody's saying anything. And meanwhile, I'm halfway back in the group looking around trying to figure out, where is he? And, like, we bro-hugged it, we're shaking hands and everything. And, like, both teams are staring at us. Like, what the hell are you people doing?
Yeah.
Like, it was the most weird environment there was. We just broed out for, like, 4 seconds. And then, like, 4 seconds later, I was like, wait a minute, that was, like, the most weird thing for literally everybody else in here except the two of us.
It was almost like the criteria was not to talk, like don't talk to him, even if you know him. Like that, like nobody even looked at each other. They were just like,
Dude, I didn't know how to go about the situation, and I don't think he did either. But no, that's a good. I should ask him about that. We need to put him on the show so we can actually get this actual full story. Good times.
Let's get him on here.
Let's call him up right now. No, I think that, I mean, when you look into just handling the unpredictable, and I think that the social settings, especially like being a baseball player, and I think this is more just a general concept of the mannerisms and the formalities of when you're a high-level player. I know that, like, if you go to the College World Series and you take a look around and you see all of these youth players, like, they all look the same. They're wearing the Nike Elite socks and a Baseballism t-shirt and their team hat. It used to be the fighting necklaces about 20 years ago, but those aren't in anymore. I had one. I'd hate to admit it. But I think about the progression of everybody's... As a baseball player, you're very identifiable, just based on kind of the attire that you wear, what you carry with you. And I can remember, like, talking about going through airport security when I would have a green plyo in my backpack. Somebody would take it out, and a security agent would just be looking at me funny. And then somebody else would go by and like, oh, yeah, there was another baseball player in here like 20 minutes ago. He had the same thing. And then here it is, I'm going, you have such a subculture of all of the norms and the standards that people on the outside of the baseball world just don't really understand. I think that's something that always really stood out to me. And I'm trying to think, what are the other, like, it was the fighting necklaces. It turns into, I mean, plyos are easy to throw in your backpack. Like, what are some things that you carry in the airport that somebody could look at you and just label you as a ball player?
Well, it's all, I mean, I feel like I could pick out two groups of people from a mile away. And those two people are people that, one, play baseball, or two are from Iowa. I could pick those people out from miles away.
You're from Iowa, though, so that doesn't count.
Well, yeah, I mean, you play baseball, too, and that we can pick them out as well. But... to go back to it, and it's just you see a hat or you see something or so. Most people like what they're doing, so they wear a shirt that has like such and such baseball on it, even if they're not like with the team or they have a hat or something. But I remember one time going through security, like you're talking with the plyos. Like I was moving from affiliate to affiliate, and I had my own rosin bag, and it was like one of the ones in a bigger sock. So it's like this white powder in a Ziploc bag that's in like a knit sock. And I forgot it was in my bag because I just had to go to the airport quick, you know. And I'm throwing it through the security thing, and the lady who was pulling it off the deal was like freaking out. She's like, because she thinks it's, you know, something crazy. 'Cause it looks like,
yeah, like your mind is instantly going to something that's a little bit more illegal than rosin here.
Right. So he puts it on the lady brings it over to the guy, and the guy puts it on the table, and she's like staring me down because she thinks it's like terrible. And the guy pulls it out of the bag and like looks at me. He's like, "You play baseball?" I was like, "Yeah." He puts it back in the bag and he looks at her. He's like, "He's good." I was like, thank God for that guy, because I don't know how I would convince. Like, otherwise, I'd be at security forever because they would have to go through and figure out that is like rosin somehow, like test it somehow. So I would have lost my rosin.
Well, then,
and I would have been freaking flagged as a whatever kind of passenger bringing rosin across the thing.
You're trying to go play in Vancouver in like a bus trip, and you get held at the border because you're trying to take a rosin bag through security.
Right. Well, I had a friend of mine who he was quickly going to somewhere. I don't remember where it was, but it was from his house. He was going to spring training or whatever, and he just grabbed his backpack. And he likes to hunt a lot. And he gets to TSA, and they pulled it out, and they're like, "Do you need these?" And it was just a box of bullets, like bigger bullets. He's like, "Oh," he's like, "Oops, I forgot those were in there." He's like, "You can just go ahead and throw those away." Sorry, I mean to bring bullets through security. Oops, my bad.
You just see how like the different realities that everybody lives in, and I know that this isn't just a specified baseball study. Like, I mean, if you go with a musician, like, I mean, as a trumpet player, they're gonna have valve oil in their bag, and somebody's gonna look at this, be like, "What is this?" And you're gonna, "Oh, well, I do this," and it's gonna require somebody in the security staff to actually know what it is that you do in order to justify this is why you have what you have. And like in the hunting world, like a box of bullets is nothing, but like for somebody else, is like, I mean, if I saw that walking through the airport, I would be like kind of frozen.
Yeah,
but
like,
somebody that's what
happen?
they do. It's just it's such a simple thing. I mean, I have my black plyo, and for a non-baseball person looking at that in an airport, I can only imagine they would be panicked.
Well, just imagine the TSA worker seeing that on the screen. You got a rubber ball, it's like half filled with sand and like a plug on top. Does that look like to you?
Terrible.
You know, like that doesn't look like anything normal. So I know when I'm flying for baseball that TSA is going to be looking at my checked bags, and that they're going to like everything's going to get disorganized because I've always put the plyos at the bottom.
Like, I get concerned if they don't stop me with the plyo in my backpack. Like, I've had times where they've just let it go through, and then I've looked around going like, "Are you guys sure you don't want to look at this?"
Like, you're telling me you've seen this before. Like, scan this again. Tell me that you have seen this before.
There was a time, I know this was another flight that I wasn't with the team. I was just flying with myself, but this was at the onset of COVID, right when the pandemic was hitting. This like March 12th or 13th of 2020. And I flew from Denver, where I was living at the time, to Arizona because there was about to be a snowstorm that was hitting Denver, and I didn't know how much. I mean, I couldn't go into a gym. I couldn't throw indoors. If it was snowing, I was throwing in the snow. So finally, my mom and dad was just like, "Come down here. We're going to hunker down for the pandemic. Nobody's going anywhere. At least be able to be in a place that you can throw outside." Got it. I'm flying to Phoenix. I flew Southwest. I mean, Erie walking through the airport. That's another story. But anyways, I have the equipment that I wanted to bring with me. I had one extra checked bag. I filled up one bag. I filled up two carry-ons that I mean, I had a lot of stuff. But anyways, I had one extra checked bag that I could bring. So I brought my shoulder tube. And I keep my shoulder tube inside this white PVC pipe. And it's got stickers all over it. It's a popular subject on the show. So I'm walking through the Denver airport. I put it through, like, I check it, and they put the tag on the end of it. It looks like a flagpole at this point. But anyways, it gets lost, and I'm devastated. No. I'm pissed.
How do you lose that?
I'm at the Phoenix baggage plane. Well, they said so it didn't make it on the first plane, and then they had it mixed in a shuffle. I guess it wasn't completely lost, but it was either on one of two incoming planes later. And mind you, the airport's, like, few people are there. Like, nobody's flying because of the pandemic now. So this airport's almost empty. So I go into the Southwest baggage check place, like the customer service check, and they said, "Your name was called out. What bag are you looking for?" I'm like, "Yes, it was in Denver. It was on your list that you guys announced over the intercom. I'm just here to check it out." And they're like, "All right, what brand of luggage is it?" And I just sat here and like I froze. I was like, "How do I explain to them what this thing actually is?"
It's a white pole.
So, well, I'm a baseball player, and it's a stick that I shake back. Like, so this dawned on me too. I'd be in an elevator, and when people would ask me what's in the pipe, I would tell them I'm an architect and this is where I keep my plans, because that was so much easier than telling them there's a shoulder tool. Yeah, and I use this and it's like an oscillating warm-up tool and it shakes back and forth. And
like, what the?
By 2 seconds in, they're gone. They have no clue.
Yeah, like,
and they said, "What kind of brand is it?" And my response was, "It is a 5-foot-long white PVC pipe with stickers all over it." And the lady at the counter started laughing at me. So, good times, man. I ended up getting it, and they gave me like $100 flight voucher, and the tickets were cheap for me to get back to Denver like 3 months later when the pandemic was starting to kind of pull out of it. So it paid for my return flight home, but I was like, "This is awesome,
sweet! I'm gonna bring that shoulder tube every time I get some free flights."
Dude, it was. I mean, looking back on it, it was perfect. But no, it's just the social awareness of what it takes to be a baseball player and to be able to explain it to non-baseball people. It is one of the most wildest concepts that exists. But you never know. Evan, you had an airport adventure over the last couple of days, man. You were stuck in the Chicago airport last night, dude.
Yeah, I was. But it was all right. I stayed in the hotel connected to the airport.
Oh, okay. They hooked you. Okay, you got it hooked up.
I had a couple plyos with me, and I was gonna try to go through a plyos, but I was like, it's not worth it to go through all that to just throw like how many reps of plyos. Also, if I'm at an airport hotel, finding a wall to like throw plyos into. Like, TSA is going to be out there going, what in the hell is happening here? Like, what's going on? Because, like, a lot of people just don't know baseball stuff. They just don't get it. They pull out a green plyo, and they're like, what is this for?
Like, what is wrong with this guy right now?
Yeah.
What do we have?
He's bringing his beach toys.
Oh, my goodness. His little floaties. He's just hanging out. There you go. Floaties. Well, I can support the Las Vegas airport, given the recent discussion we had to kick this episode off. I can confirm that those guys are pretty cool, but that might have only just been victim of circumstance of New Year's Eve. So, very, very well thought out. I mean, it dawns on you the craziest places that you can get your work in. The airport is a very good observation place. Maybe not the most ideal to get the work in, but, we've got... I respect the decision, honestly, especially all of the travel details that go into it. And then by the time you get home, you're ready to start rolling again. You're ready to get back into the rhythm, and it works. So that's good stuff, man. I need to fly to come see you so we can do one of these episodes in person, by the way.
Let's just do one on a plane. How about that?
With two teams that are opponents at the front and at the back, and then we'll just kind of be the mediator right in the middle.
We'll bring all the cameras and set it all up and just do it on some kind of flight somewhere.
Good grief. We're having a good time, man. This is Night Pitch episode number 10. We kicked this thing off talking about something we didn't have any plan on talking about, and that's how we do it on this program. Happy to see everybody safe. Holiday season. Happy to see that Evan's holding it down and he still wants to be the co-host right there. That's always a good sign. Anyways, very cool. It's good to be back in the saddle doing these things again. It's good to get back into the routine as we continue to do these on a far more frequent basis, which is some exciting business. So with that being said, we are going to take a short break. We'll be back with more interesting details. We've got all sorts of cool business. That's what we do on the program. Thank you all for tuning in very much. This is episode 10 of The Night Pitch. You can find it in Cooperstown, New York. The National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum boasts more than 340 inductees, including players, executives, managers, umpires, and baseball pioneers. This honor is reserved for a select group. Only about 1.3% of all players to play in the big leagues. The selection process for Hall of Fame glory is diverse, with different committees serving as checks and balances to prevent unjust omission, along with representation from people that aren't players. Each committee can elect candidates, but one selection process, the BBWAA ballot, stands out as the most recognized and usually the point of election for the best players. BBWAA stands for Baseball Writers Association of America. After holding membership for a decade as an active journalist, one becomes eligible to cast a Hall of Fame vote. For a player's name to grace the BBWAA ballot, their final MLB game must conclude 5 years prior, and they must play a pretty good amount of big league baseball. There are almost 400 ballots cast each year for the Hall of Fame. Once all the ballots are counted, a player with at least 75% of the vote is elected into the Hall. A player is removed if they poll below 5% or if they fail to be inducted after 10 years, whichever one comes first. This alone means that induction timelines can be swift or prolonged, reminiscent of Larry Walker's decade-long ascent that was capped off in 2020. BBWA voters can vote for up to 10 players on any single ballot. The 10-player limit, coupled with the addition of new candidates each year, prompts dynamic shifts in voting patterns. Some voters advocate for a more exclusive Hall of Fame, with some going as far as submitting a blank ballot with 0 selections in a given year. Other voters may routinely use all 10 check marks, but with new names each year, this could mean a writer might omit a player that they previously voted for. Voter transparency is often a common practice, with many writers sharing their ballots publicly. This provides insight into unique considerations and preferences of each voter, and there can be a lot of different perspectives on who is deserving. With around 400 ballots collected each year, only one player in baseball history has been a unanimous selection. That was New York Yankees closer Mariano Rivera in 2019. The next closest is his longtime teammate, shortstop Derek Jeter, receiving all but one of the 397 votes in 2020. As anticipation builds for the 2024 selections, a handful of players await the phone call that could immortalize them with the highest baseball honor. The unveiling of the chosen few is set for Tuesday, January 23rd, promising another chapter in the captivating saga of the Baseball Hall of Fame selection process. Welcome back to Night Pitch episode 10. Welcome in, boys and girls. We've been talking plenty about Evan and I between our Christmas, holiday, New Year travel. You're used to different situations. You're not exactly waking up in your own bed, of course. You're spending time with family. You might be in a hotel. You might be at somebody else's house. You might be sleeping in a car driving somewhere. You might be sleeping in an airplane going somewhere. So during the break, we discussed certainly his overnight stay at the Chicago Airport Hotel, recent in the mind, and his experiment of trying to find a place to throw plyos. So what better way? We talked about the airport formalities, so now we're here to talk about the hotel formalities. What is it like being a ball player in all sorts of different hotels? So it's standard operation. Sometimes you'll have 3 to a room, 4 to a room. Sometimes you might only have 2 to a room. You never know. You're typically going to be in a block of rooms that are in somewhat proximity to one another, which is probably by design because if we're talking about a bunch of alpha males together, there's probably going to be at least a little bit higher relative noise than it would be the average business traveler. It just is what it is. But the atmosphere that exists in a hotel, Evan, this is fresh in your mind from just your experience. So I'll turn this over to you. What is it like being a ball player with a group of people? What are some of the standards? What are the norms in the hotel lifestyle for baseball players?
Well, you walk a lot and to where you need to go. Because hopefully your hotel's near a lot of places that you can eat. Go grab something to eat. Or best if you're next to like a really, really good gas station. Not That's like true. East and West Coast style gas stations, but like Texas style gas stations, where there's like
Quick Trip in the Midwest. Yeah, there you go.
Like a Casey's if you're from Iowa. That would be one of them. But that's always good to have. Conjoining rooms are always nice. So you can hang out. But I think the difference in what makes it good or bad is you have, one, just the quality of the hotel. What do they have for amenities? Which you can't control, obviously. So every time you walk into a hotel, it's like everybody's looking around. What do we got? What's the room situation? What's going on? But one thing I will say for people who go 3 to a room or 4 to a room, when they're on the road, whether that's like a smaller college or a summer team or whatever, be the first one in to the room to run to the phone, pick it up, and ask for a rollaway bed. Because if you're 3 to a room, you're sleeping 2 in one bed and 1 in the other, or if you're JUCO, you're going 2 and 2 in each bed. Sometimes 5 people to a room. But if you get in there quick enough before anybody else does and call for a rollaway bed, they'll bring up like a twin mattress on like rollers, the rollaway bed, and then you can sleep on that instead of sleeping in the bed with somebody else. So once I figured that out, every time we got to a hotel, I would run. If I knew I was 3, I would run upstairs and call for the rollaway bed. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah,
Keep that on your mind.
that's a good little. I mean, this is the insider scoop. This is why you tune in for full episodes right there, because you never know what kind of gem is going to be unearthed all of a sudden, man. I know that. I mean, the training setups of typically maybe you'll be on the road, and it's pretty standard. I mean, some teams will coordinate. You'll go to a gym and you'll get a lift together, or you'll go somewhere where you can get a workout, or you might even just report to the ballpark that might have the stuff there for you. And I can think of like actually getting your work in, and it dawned on me when you're talking about having your plyos at the Chicago airport hotel of where do I find a place to throw. I can remember like kind of pivotal moments in my development being on the road of when you start to recognize the extra steps being taken to get what you need taken care of. I can remember when I was a junior in high school, or the summer between my junior and senior year, I played a tournament in Los Angeles. And it was a starter. I threw, I don't know, call it 100 pitches the day before, had a pretty good game, and it's time to show up for the next day, which is you hit your legs heavy if you want. I mean, that's what I would do. I would go heavy legs. I would very light throwing, a lot more plyometric type of exercises just to hit your body on a hard reset. So we didn't play until that night. And I remember waking up the next morning, just seeing palm trees in Los Angeles, going for a little bit of a walk, getting my sprints in, doing what I needed to do. I had a medicine ball with me and I did a medicine ball circuit. And I remember just like I took a picture of my training setup that day. I still have it on my phone of it was like such a turning point for me because it was like an eye-opening moment of this is what you do no matter where you are. And like I mean when it starts to creep into this is a lifestyle of what defines what you're committed to. I think that those things come together on the road. I think that some people might take it maybe too far. Like you've mentioned people throwing plyos into mattresses before, if that's true.
Oh yeah, that was his name is Denson Hull. You can find it on Twitter.
You're gonna name drop him right here?
Oh yeah. Oh, of course I'm dropping Denson's name.
You would actually wear it too. He would actually be flattered that you did.
Yeah, Foul Pole. If everybody's familiar with Foul Pole put this up on their page where he wanted to throw plyos, so we took the mattress and lifted it up. This was Reagan and Denson's room, I think, or Denson and Wyndham. And we lifted the bed up and put it up against the wall, and he was standing in the room throwing plyos at the bottom side of the mattress in the room.
It's just so bad. It's just, well, I mean, the sad part about this too is like if you are walking by, and I mean, again, we've talked about the social standards that exist in baseball. If you're walking through and you see a baseball person in the airport, what you point out, like it's just funny to see the different noises that exist. Of like, I know ballet dancers will take their point shoes and they will like beat them on the side of like a railing, and that's what you do to break them in. You just need to break. And if you walk by and you saw somebody doing that, you'd be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, well, I would
but
be
that's
so
just
confused.
normal in the situation. Yeah. So I think of the different subsets that exist, but I think the funny part about it too is sometimes there are subsets within baseball players that maybe some baseball players don't specifically know about, and it's just I need to get my throws in, so I propped a mattress up and I went to work.
Well, we had at Creighton, we had during that when we were on a road trip, our training room was our trainer's room. So like if you needed like soft tissue or like Mark Pro or needed to use the Normatec or had to do anything like that, you would go to the trainer's room. So I remember sitting like working on shin splints, and our trainer's sitting on one bed and I'm sitting on the other while my shin splints are doing like contrast with heat and ice in this. I think it was either the Game Ready or something like that. And we're sitting there talking about ESPN in his room, and I'm just like, the training table is now the other queen bed in here.
What kind of budget do we have going on? Well, some places might not even have a trainer at that point. Like those resources, you got $1,000 equipment in there that you're getting used for treatment, and then you're laying on a hotel queen bed to get it done.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, I'm thinking like some of the worst hotels that maybe people have stayed in, and I can't think of many that like immediately come to mind. I can think of some lame like continental breakfasts in the morning.
I can think of a really, really bad one
league
right away.
Yeah, if you're playing in a league where meals are provided, like, well, a continental breakfast for a hotel checks the box, but like some of them are a lot better than others. So like I can remember when we would be going to certain cities that were in like a league or a division that we were playing in. You started at the end of the season getting a knowledge of we're going here, we're probably staying here, which means we're going to be taken care of. And like people clearly started to have like really good tastes of certain cities just based on what you would get. But I'll turn it to you. You sound like you got the breakfast story ready to go.
Well, it's not. Well, part of it's breakfast, but most of it is the entire hotel. Just how bad it was. I won't say what team I was with or where I was at, because this hotel that we got was absolutely brutal. It's a motel, so it opens up to the outside. There's the hotel, and then there's the motel that opens up. Well, we pull in, and we're looking at it like, this is one of the places that you see on the side of the road, and you're like, people actually stay there? Like, they actually sleep there? Like, that's like it's still more open. Dangerous and gross than just sleeping, like, in the grass on the side of the road overnight.
When it looks more desirable to sleep on the bus that you drove in, well, that's a problem.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of how it looked like. And we get up to our room, and there's 4 of us to a room, and they're tiny queen beds. Well, first off, the shower had brown water, and there's cockroaches in the room, which...
Nice.
Whatever. That's fine. You know, we can deal with it, right? People might think I'm crazy, but you can deal with it, right? It's just dirty. It's just dirty, nasty.
Yeah, it is what it is.
But it had a window, and then underneath the window, so the door was here, the window was here, and then there's a unit underneath the window for the AC and stuff, right? Well, we assumed somebody had been coming in and out of that room for a long time, because when we went to turn on the AC stuff, it fell out of the wall, like onto the walkway. So there's just this huge hole in
like
the wall.
Happy Gilmore style?
Yeah, like that. But like the big hotel units, you know, that are long, like underneath the window, it fell out of the wall. So we're like,
could you have fell through it? Like, was it big enough that you could have slipped through the hole?
Yeah, dude. It was the big, like, you know, the hotel style where they're long, like really long underneath the window. Like the big rectangle.
I got you.
Fell out of the wall.
Dear.
Onto the ground. So we picked it up and just propped it up, like leaned it against the thing. So we just had a hole in the wall for the 2 days that we were there. And
good.
We're sleeping, and there had been reviews about gunshots in this location.
Oh, no.
Before we got there. We're sleeping, and we hear arguing outside, and we're like, all of us wake up because it's like 2 dudes getting ready to fight, and it sounds like there's multiple with each of them. And we're like,
in a motel, so it's not like you have a hallway outside. You literally are like ear to this situation.
Yeah, they're outside in the parking lot right there, and there's a hole in our door like this big. We're like, they ended up not fighting and nothing happened. But anyways, the next morning I walked in and they're like, there's some breakfast. So we go to the fridge in the lobby, and it's just like a tiny little room, and there's just one little fridge. And all it had in there was like Activa yogurts. Like the fiber, like the gut yogurt. And I was like, okay, geez. So I'm not going to eat one of these. But I think one of the people I was staying with just had no idea what that meant. He just thought it was yogurts. He ate like 6 of them. And then for the rest of the day, he was just on the toilet because he had all the Activa yogurts.
He just loaded up on like a week worth of fiber in one day.
Yeah.
He's got probiotics like you wouldn't believe.
But that was all we had at that airport, and I just remember that hotel and that stuff was one of the worst I had ever seen my whole life.
Well, you know, I like what you had said about like travel. I know we talked about this on an earlier episode. At a certain point, it gets to where yes, it's an inconvenience, but you just can't help but laugh at it, like because it's the funniest thing.
It's so absurd that you just can't really process it. You're like, how is this bad?
I mean, I can think of like what it might lead people to do action-wise. I can think of a couple hotels that stand out from not being the most accommodating. Not anything near yours of holes in the walls. I mean, fortunately, I haven't been that misfortunate, but I can think of another we'll go with anonymous team yet again. We're playing in a pretty warm. We're in Southern California, playing in a tournament out there, and there's the hotel that we're staying on is like on one side of the freeway, and there's not really anything on our side of the highway, but you can walk across the highway and about a mile down the road, and that's where like a shopping center is and some grocery stores. So I made the walk to the grocery store with a couple teammates. We checked it out, got some stuff, walked back. It was a hike. Like, I mean, this was a good trip, like up and over the big bridge of the interstate. Like, this is a big deal. So we're staying at this hotel with three different teams. Like, I mean, there's baseball players all over the place, and it's a pretty big hotel. Like, I mean, it's not just a 3-team hotel. Like, this thing's probably 12 stories. It's a pretty good size. So one of the teams goes, there's about 10 of them that are walking to a grocery store, and I see them walking back, and one of the players on the team is carrying a full watermelon.
Oh.
So I see this, and I'm all right, yeah, they're just going to cut up a watermelon. Right?
Take a bite out of the side.
So I have questions in and of itself, but I see the watermelon come into the hotel. The next day, I find out reports that watermelon was thrown off the top of the hotel. And so it didn't hit somebody, but it splattered. And, like, I mean, it splattered, and the remnants of the splatter hit somebody. So the story goes, like, a person playing a game of telephone, it went from, yeah, it splattered on somebody to, dude, did you hear that watermelon drilled somebody? Like, so now everybody in the hotel is talking to each other saying some team threw a watermelon off the top of the hotel and it drilled somebody. And, like, this is a 12-story hotel. This is a big thing. So the entire team was kicked out. They literally, in the middle, this was midway through the tournament, they kicked out the entire team. They said leave. So the worst part was they didn't know what team it was. Like, I mean, these people ran. Like, nobody has any clue. Finally, they checked surveillance footage. They got a couple people to line it up. I think the 3 head coaches finally got in a room with, like, a closed-circuit TV, and they looked at the footage. But it turned into, I mean, I remember, like, for the remainder of the week, you would walk through this hotel of all the non-baseball people, and they were just staring at you just with the absolute death glare of this is ridiculous. But no, I mean, I like the travel setups as far, I mean, I shouldn't say I like it in lieu of those recent comments, but, you know, I think of the differences of what just the cultural norms of travel actually are, and especially in a hotel setting when you realize that, you know, yes, you're still courteous. I'm not accusing baseball players of being malicious across the board. I mean, it's not that there's any inappropriate normalcies that take place outside of basic humanity, but you know, I think the memorable side of you really get to know the people that you're around. And I mean, I know that you and I could touch on this. I mean, we live together in an apartment. We've roomed together on the road of the things that you wouldn't know about somebody just being in close proximity. I know I've talked about this on previous episodes too, but I always enjoyed you're staying with somebody, you're kind of in a confined area. All of a sudden more teammates come in, you're just sitting in a room. I think that you could draw like a playbook of the different configurations of when you have dudes just sitting in a hotel room. Where do they sit? Because, I mean, they usually group together. You're having a good time. You're playing cards at a table. You're watching TV elsewhere. You got somebody laying on the floor just hanging out. Like, is there like a common practice of when you get a bunch of people in, like there's just one dude sitting on the windowsill, and like, is it a universal thing of that's the way it goes?
Well, there's always the guy that has to sit on the foot of the bed with no backrest. That's a common position. That's one of the worst ones. There's usually two people up against the bed headboard sitting there, and then whoever gets the office chair, whoever gets the office chair in the room leads the whole conversation of the whole room because they can spin.
That's because everybody else is readjusting the whole time.
Yeah, they can spin and like turn and address certain people of the room. So if you have the office chair, you're the leader of the room. Not saying it's your room, but you lead the conversation because you're in the very, very middle and you have the comfiest seat.
You know, this is interesting too. Like, we should come up with a strategy of it. I mean, you mentioned the first thing to go call for the rollaway bed as soon as you walk in the room. Like, another veteran move is to take your backpack and put it on the office chair.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good one. Like, what can you do to guarantee yourself when the social situation? I mean, maybe might not all come together because maybe people don't group into your room. You might be in a different room and it might not work out. But like, that's one that comes to mind. I can think of
I always had a pet peeve.
I mean, some people like to claim.
I always had a pet
Oh
peeve
yeah, go ahead.
when I would have people would be coming to my room, and I was sitting on the bed, and they'd have shoes on or something, and they would go sit like on the bed next to me, or like get too cozy with a pillow, like they like go like this and like put it in their armpit or something and like lay on it. I'm like, dude, you're getting your nasty all over my stuff. Like, dude, go sit on his bed. And then he's like, no, go sit on that guy's bed. It becomes a thing.
Well, you think of just the social standards too. I mean, that's one thing that weirds me out of like people putting shoes on furniture. I mean, it's just I'm not really like yeah. You mentioned cockroaches in a hotel room. Like yes, that's kind of that's pretty nasty. But like, all right, you're gonna deal with it. It's not a big deal. But I think that beyond it, I can deal with those types of things. Like I've slept on a bus floor before. Like I'm not really afraid of those things. But it's like the courtesies that exist of even if you're not grossed out or weirded out by something, it's just you kind of like, that's normal? Like, this is the way that you do this right now? But I think it's funny too because, like, the experience of you can tell somebody that maybe hasn't traveled very often. I mean, it's kind of like if you go through airport security and you're pretty efficient because you've done it several times, somebody else for the first time. Like, this was something, I was flying home for Thanksgiving, and right in front of me in the security line was somebody that had never flown before. And I remember looking at him going like, dude, really? And then he said something about, I can't believe this. And I was like, wait a minute, he has no idea. Like, I mean, it was like such an eye-opening perspective moment. So, I mean, I don't want to tie this too back into the other airplane side that we opened up with, but I think about the social norms in a hotel setting. And I think especially like for amateur players of maybe you don't spend a whole lot of time overnight trips with your team maybe aren't normal. You get into college and it's an overnight stay with your team every single day because your living situations and the travel that you have. That's just the nature of it. But like, I think it's funny to really take a look at when you get into like the college or I can presume the professional settings of there's maybe some players that have done it before to the point that they're kind of sick of all the travel. There's some that maybe haven't done it too much to their liking and it's not really, it's new to them and they're like still invigorated by it. And it's like a spectrum of the well-traveled people that are sick of it with the non-well-traveled people that are absolutely enamored by everything that goes on. And on every team that I've been on, there's been a very wide mix on that spectrum of travel that you never consistently get people on one side or the other.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that, and people have feel over a certain amount of time, and that's
yeah,
that ends up being a thing. Like one feel example would be like if you're gonna go to somebody's room, like text them, just be like, "Hey, I'm coming in there."
Yeah.
Because like a lot of times I'd go there and somebody
what's up, man?
I'd knock and they'd like come to the door and like, what? I'd be like, oh, sorry, you're taking a nap. Like I should have probably just texted you before I came over here. But I was just coming to hang out.
You're going, wait a second.
But a big feel thing too is we haven't talked about this one much. It's when you live with a host family.
That's a good one. That's true.
That's very different.
I think I had the best host family ever, by the way. I want to give them a plug. Darren and Patty Liebrance. I hope they're tuning in. Not to speak poorly on yours. I just wanted to show them some love because that's a tremendous topic. That's actually really good too.
Absolutely. I've had a lot of very good host families.
Yeah.
And in the Northwoods, because that was really the only place that I had a host family other than for like just a couple weeks in Everett. The host family I had with the Rocks, the Henrys, they were awesome. Craig Duffield in Canada, he was awesome.
In Thunder Bay, is that right?
Yeah. And there was only one time I had a host family where it just was like, it was not it. And it was right when I first got to Thunder Bay, and it was in the middle of. They had nothing there. It wasn't prepared to even like have me there. It was such a small house that it like I would. There was. I don't know. It was like they made it for me to be there, but it wasn't. They didn't have enough space at all. And after 2 weeks, they were like, "Hey, this isn't going to work for us. So we just don't have enough space. So we're going to have to like." We asked them if we could just be done with it and you can go move with, a different person. So that's when
You got kicked out of a host family house.
kind of, yeah. I mean, I never did
That's
anything,
horrible.
but like they realized that that wasn't a good fit because the house was so tiny and they had two big German shepherds. And
Of their own doing, yeah.
they didn't have enough
Jeez.
space for me there. They didn't, because I was like, I'm sleeping like right next to them, and the bathroom's like right there, and there's two big dogs. And the bed didn't even they put the bed in the room, but it didn't fit in the room. So there's nowhere for me to put like my bags anywhere. But that's when I got moved to Craig Duffield. And Craig Duffield was a older single man who liked beer and liked to cook, and he liked to have a good time and watch sports. So like
There you go.
I would come back and he would go to all the games. I'd come back and he'd be talking to me about it, and like we'd hang out and eat some food and watch sports and talk about this and that. And then like he's like, yeah, this whole basement, just go for it. Like just whatever you need. So then eventually people started like, hey, Craig's pretty cool.
They start catching on, yeah.
So now like the place to go after the games is Craig Duffield's house. And we're all like going there and hanging out and talking to Craig because he was interested in what we were doing. And then another host family I had that was fantastic was the Henrys in St. Cloud. They were in Cold Spring. I think it was Cold Spring. It's hard to remember. But it was by the
Cold
lake.
Spring or Richmond?
It could have been Richmond too. It was over by that. Okay. It was over by the lake.
But I went over there. I know where. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
but they were very, very nice. And I remember since it was a longer drive, I would come in late all the time. But the bathroom they had a bathroom downstairs, but I just had a tub, so I had to use the bathroom up by their room. And I was like, I swear I'm waking them up every single time I come back and take a shower. So I was like, oh man, I feel like every time at like midnight, 1 o'clock, I'm waking them up taking a shower. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go shower at the Anytime Fitness. So I started showering at the Anytime Fitness.
Did you actually?
Yeah, so I started after games showering at the Anytime Fitness.
Gym on the way home?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I'd shower there because I just felt bad about like showering so late. But they were awesome, and they had Zach Henry. You knew him because he was Bat Boy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
he was one of the Bat Boys then. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I didn't know the story about you taking a shower there. That's money, dude. That's good for you.
Yeah, because I just felt bad about it. I didn't want to wake him up every single night I came home.
Yeah,
not because I was out doing anything bad, but because that's just how long it took to get home.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, I mean, that's a respectable move, and I mean, when you realize like those are, I mean, just the basic courtesies involved. Like I know some people that maybe socially they're kind of uncomfortable living in somebody else's house, which I admit I was kind of that way early on when I first had a host family, just because you're living in somebody else's space and you don't want to step on their toes.
Yeah,
but like once you kind of realize that
it's
different.
That exchange when you first meet them, if they've never done it before, which most of the host families have, but like if they haven't, it's so you feel like such an intruder because but after like a week, if you take the opportunity to get to know each other after like a week, you're friends, Yeah. But at first, it is the most awkward situation. It's so awkward.
Yeah, like instantly, it's hey, you're living with us. Nice when it's a handshake. Nice to meet you, and let me show you where you're going to be living for the next 2 months. Like it's just such a. I mean, it's a cool dynamic though. But I mean, that's when you're in a good situation, and I mean, I know you've had plenty of good ones. I'll speak on mine. I played summer ball for 3 years in the same city, and I was with the same host family for 3 years. And like I'm debating having the kid in their family and like my wedding party someday because like I mean, that was how cool it was to be with them. But I can remember it was a husband and wife, and they had one younger son, and he was 11 when I first got there, and he was a left-handed pitcher. Like he loved baseball. So I was seeing him progress 11, 12, 13 years old, and he's in high school now. But like when you realized how you were suddenly like, it was so much more than just you at that point. And I think about the perspective that it brought on my life of like, this kid is watching everything I do. And I get like, I mean, it turned into like work ethic. I already considered myself a pretty committed ball player, but like if I wasn't doing it for myself at that point, I'm like, I need to do it for this kid. because like I need to show him what it's like to be a big time player like this. And I can recall he was a bat boy a couple times, which was cool too, because like I'd be playing catch with him before a game, or I'd be joking around with him in the dugout, and like seeing the host parents sitting up in the stands, like soaking it up, was one of the. I think I enjoyed it more than they did. It was just such a cool thing. But I mean, I can encourage, and I mean, this is something that I would like people to kind of catch on to, as far as if you're in a situation like that, first and foremost, be yourself, but also recognize that they're excited to have you there, or else they wouldn't want you there. Like, I mean, the fact that you're even
Correct.
in that situation means that they're already willing and able, in most cases, unless you're in Thunder Bay for 2 weeks and they have two German Shepherds, but all other situations, they're willing to do it, they're able to make it happen, and it's good people that, if you open your doors up to somebody, that's like a tremendous, like, bit of confidence if they trust you, which instantly. So I think that's fun. We could probably do a whole other episode on host families. We actually probably should do that.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Because of the people who are in the area, especially for like summer ball, like that's huge for the summer league to even stay afloat, right?
Yeah.
And I like telling my parents about it. They're like, yeah, if we had a summer team here, I would do that in a second. Especially when like me and my brother were really little.
Yeah, that's huge.
Especially if your kid likes baseball and he likes sports, and all that stuff.
Oh, that's the coolest thing.
You just have a mentor around, you know. It's awesome. Those kinds of situations. Host families are not something that is ever going to be a bad thing, unless of course the one that I got that they had no clue that how I was even going to sleep. It was like, here's a couch. I'm like, for 2 months, okay, I got it. I can do this.
Well, it's amazing too, because like if you're put in the right setting, I think about like the optimism. Like, I mean, the times that I played summer ball, that was my favorite time playing ball. And I can't help but wonder. I mean, yes, there was a lot more factors that went into it, but I often wonder how much of my perspective was shaped just because I had such a great place to live. I mean, it was mainly the people that were there. Like, it was just such genuine interactions, and it was a good crowd to be around, that I then think, my perception on the entire game of baseball when it was going really well for me is very much centered around those times that I was around them. So I guess that's a good bit of encouragement of, if you're around people for an extended bit of time, you could completely change their outlook on the game just by giving them the support they need and making sure that they're taken care of. And like, there's a lot of host families out there, man, that deserve a ton of love.
Ton of love.
Like, we need to get them on the show too. That would actually be awesome to put the host families on the show. Oh my goodness, man. Yeah, well, there we go. We got airplanes covered. We got hotels covered. We got my favorite bit of the segment, closing with the host family business. Evan, you got anything else for us, man?
I don't think so. I'll save it for next time.
That's good. That's juicy. Let's just keep cranking these out. I was going to say, we'll just get rid of the closing remarks and we'll just turn that into the intro for their episode 11 or what we got right there.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, how's your travel? We'll give you the floor at this point because you're the active player. I mean, this is kind of impromptu, but just more curiosity of, you're in the middle of the off season. Of course, spring training's approaching. Give us kind of the update, like your training, how you're progressing. For those that maybe don't know your story, Tommy John surgery, you're going on about a year and a half post-op at this point. So you're getting familiar into the routine. How is it gearing up for what's looking like a normal spring training for you once again?
Yeah, it's going well. I have not thrown without arm pain in a very long time. So throwing right now feels incredible.
There you go.
And I'm going down there early, so that's nice. So I can get out of the cold weather, because we have 2 feet of snow down and can't drive anywhere. Really. You got to drive slow. So
that's true.
But yeah, going good. Getting into bullpens.
There you go.
Getting ready to go. I'm excited. Normal spring training. It's going to be awesome.
This guy's doing his thing, man. I imagine we'll have plenty of similar updates throughout the course of the year, but we figured we got to kick this thing off with a fresh slate and covering how the off-season training is progressing. As for me, I'm jealous because I want to throw like Evan still, but we'll just leave it at that right there, man. Good times.
Wait, you got to come down for spring training. We'll get some throwing in.
That's right. There you go. We'll crank it out and we'll do the thing. I forget I have a facility here too that I guess I could be doing it at, so we'll see how it goes. Good times, man. Best of luck to everybody progressing through. I'll end with this little wise nugget of something that kind of is always fresh in my mind for those of you playing right now. Of January and February were always the longest and toughest months of the year for me as a player, especially if you're living in a cold weather climate. Of you're confined to tight spaces. Maybe you don't have the resources that you otherwise would in the middle of the season, and sometimes it feels like the months just won't end as you're progressing towards a lot of these seasons starting in late February, early March, mid-March, whatever it may be. So just want to show you, I don't have any real advice on how to persist through those, other than just stay the course and realize that good days are ahead, and realizing that you're going to be back in the swing of things soon enough. So keep doing your thing, keep staying persistent, and anything we can do on this program to help remind you guys of the good times ahead once the weather breaks, we're back on diamonds doing what we love to do. That's what we're here for. We're here to cultivate ambition and enthusiasm through the game of baseball the best way that we possibly can, and we are so happy that you guys are along for the ride. He's Evan Johnson. I'm Justin Wick. This has been episode 10 of The Night Pitch. Make sure you check us out on the social channels. Make sure you say hello if you've made it to this point of the episode, and we will make sure that we keep putting out this good content for all of you guys. So on behalf of the Night Pitch crew, my name is Justin Wick. Thank you very much. We will see you next time.